Early voting is underway and candidates now making their final pitch to voters. While we wait to see who will win the top job in City Hall, we sit down with one leader who's making her exit at the end of the year. Adrienne Adams will be moving on. In 2022, she made history as the first African-American speaker of the City Council. What she says about the affordability crisis and what it will take for New York City to elect a woman as mayor one day. All that and more in a moment. But first, in case you missed it, the three leading candidates for mayor faced off in their final debate right here on New York One at LaGuardia Community College. Here's Bobby Kuza with a recap.
From ICE raids to homelessness to education, Wednesday night's debate on New York One covered a range of policy issues. But it was the attacks that stood out, particularly between Andrew Cuomo and Zohran Mamdani.
He is a desperate man, lashing out because he knows that the one thing he's always cared about, power, is now slipping away from him.
Zohran is a great actor.
Cuomo, trailing in the polls, was on the offensive all night, but his attacks were blunted by Republican Curtis Sliwa, who continually reminded voters about Cuomo's scandals.
Since I left, homeless rate has more than doubled.
You didn't leave. You fled from being impeached by the Democrats in the state legislature.
Mamdani's worst moment came when he avoided a question about 3 housing-related ballot questions.
Housing should be good jobs as well.
What a political answer. What is your opinion, Zohran?
No?
Come on.
I have not yet taken a position on those ballot measures.
Oh, what a shocker.
Mamdani's opponents also ganged up on him when it came to the issue of anti-Semitism.
You're the savior of the Jewish people? You won't denounce globalize the Intifada, which means kill Jews.
When they've heard some of the statements you've made, like in support of global jihad.
I have never, not once, spoken in support of global jihad. That is not something that I have said, and that continues to be ascribed to me, and frankly, I think much of it has to do with the fact that I am the first Muslim candidate to be on the precipice of winning this election.
As always, Cuomo drew a contrast between his long career in government and the 34-year-old Mamdani's relative inexperience.
I did things. You have never had a job. You've never accomplished anything. There's no reason to believe you have any merit or qualification, and you've literally never proposed a bill on anything that you're now talking about in your campaign.
A state assemblyman since 2021, Mamdani made the case that Cuomo's experience is the wrong kind.
The city has been getting screwed by the state, and that has to change.
We just had a former governor say in his own words that the city has been getting screwed by the state. Who was leading the state? It was you!
That's Bobby Kuza reporting for us on this Sunday. Let's begin today's conversation with City Council Speaker Adrienne Adams. Madam Speaker, always great to have you here.
So good to be with you again.
And you are wrapping up your term, and we are proud to say this entire show is going to be a conversation with you because you really know a lot about what's going on in City Hall. And before we get to your legacy as the first African-American speaker, I want to first talk about what's happening this election cycle. As you know, the election is coming up. Affordability. Everybody agrees that affordability is the top issue. Right. However, we've always known it was the top issue, and every 4 years it's the top issue. Mm-hmm. Why is it so difficult for City Hall to get a handle on the housing crisis?
Oh my goodness. It is because we are at such a deficit when it comes to housing in New York City. We have been really, really behind in so long for decades. And we are now at the shortest that we've ever been for housing, for the provision of housing for our residents. In spite of the fact that people love New York, love to be here, love to live here, we have just outgrown ourselves exponentially as far as places for people to live. But I tell you one thing, my mantra in coming into this council as being the Speaker of the City Council, I have always maintained to my members, we cannot be the council that says no when it comes to places for people to live.
Yes, and the council said yes to the City of Yes.
Right.
And talk about the legacy of that. It was adopted 1 year ago. A new administration will take over in January. So what happens to the City of Yes?
The City for the City of Yes, which we call the City for All, because it morphed into something other than its original form when it was first presented by the mayor, by the mayoral administration. We turned it into the City for All and made it truly something that the city needed and not just one blanket zoning proposal. We crafted it. We ensured $5 billion extra for the city, for the provision of housing, affordable housing, and that $5 billion extra goes towards infrastructure building, particularly in those areas that need it the most, that have experienced levels of flooding, unprecedented flooding over the years. We also made provision for NYCHA residents as well, those folks that have been sitting and waiting for repairs for so long. Well, we've got some money in City for All / City of Yes for those residents as well. We also have a provision of funding in that $5 billion for homeowners who we don't talk enough about as far as I'm concerned. We talk a lot about renters who deserve to be spoken about, but we can never forget homeowners and the situations that homeowners are in as well, in need of repair for their homes as well. So there is some money there also. There is also money in for other things when it comes to community building, and that is the main thing that the council is interested in, making sure that our communities are provided for when it comes to the issues of affordability, when it comes to making sure that we have a voice at the table of negotiation for our residents.
Okay, and so the housing crisis will be on the ballot this election day, and you're not a fan of the housing proposals, proposals 2, 3, and 4. Explain why you are skeptical about those proposals.
Well, Cheryl, proposals 2, 3, and 4 basically are blanket statements that say, let's just build housing. The proposal number 2 talks about fast tracking housing. Let's just put housing on a fast track. The fast track does not take into accountability the time that is spent pre-ULURP because of the city agencies' work that they have to do. That means the mayor's side of the house. Housing takes about 900 days when it comes to development proposals and all the pre-work that needs to be done for the provision of development anywhere. 700 days or so are spent pre-term on the mayoral administration side. As quiet as it's kept, the city council only has 65 days maximum, Cheryl, to get our work done. So how did we become the ones behind the 8 ball saying, oh, they're trying to hold up housing? Makes no sense. So we are just making sure that our residents know that this language is misleading. It is taking you off of the track and out of the equation when it comes to your voice and the voices of your duly elected officials who know your districts and your communities better than anyone. Your voices are lost. Your elected officials' voices are lost on ballots 2, 3, and 4. The provision of making sure that there is more modest housing for proposal number 2. Well, also that takes away the voices of the people. And then proposal 4 brings us an appeals board. Sounds really nice, right? An appeals board is made up of 3 individuals, a mayoral representative, the council speaker, and the borough president. Well, that still makes sure that the voices of those communities are not heard because we bring in an appeals board and there is no room or provision for a public hearing at all when it comes to this appeals board. So proposals 2, 3, and 4 basically are saying you have no voice, you have no say-so. We are going to now put in place of your voices community board, residents, and everyone else that truly, truly knows what you need in your communities. You need more parks, more schools, more provision for public transit, and so much more. Well, you won't have a voice in making sure that happens anymore because mayoral appointees in the way of the BSA, the Board of Standards and Appeals, is now going to have that voice. CPC, City Planning Commission, is now going to have that voice instead of you.
And that's why New Yorkers need to do their homework on all of those proposals on the flip side of the ballot.
That's right.
When we come back, we're going to talk about your legacy in the City Council. Thanks for staying with us. In Focus continues right after this. Thanks for staying with us. We're here with City Council Speaker Adrienne Adams. I want to touch on health care. That's something you've been very focused on during your tenure. Another major crisis. You represent Southeast Queens, and as you well know, your borough has been decimated. So many hospitals have closed in Queens. But just days ago, you announced a major investment for Jamaica. Tell us about that.
Yes, the Jamaica Neighborhood Plan.
Yeah.
Tremendous. The largest zoning project in a generation, particularly for the neighborhood of Jamaica. We've been waiting for this for so long, and we finally got it done. Major investments in healthcare because of the Jamaica Neighborhood Plan. 12,000 units of housing will happen. Nearly half of that will be permanently affordable. We will have provisions for schools. We will have provisions for healthcare, as we just said, for our parks, infrastructure, for commercial space, for community space. This is tremendous, and I have to give a big hand over to my colleague, the amazing Councilmember Natasha Williams, who had at least 2 years of meetings, of workshops, and a lot of other things, working with the community, with residents, to make sure that we got this right.
And you are also very proud of the Guaranteed Basic Income Program in partnership with the Bridge Project. What's that about?
Well, Cheryl, I'm so glad you asked, because so many people don't realize that New York actually has a guaranteed basic income project, which hasn't had a program which has never happened before. So the City Council actually works in partnership with the Bridge Project, and I encourage everyone to please Google the Bridge Project and realize their beautiful work that they do. What this program does is give a stipend to women who have been in domestic situations, other situations that have kept them from being in permanent housing. So these are women in shelter that may be perhaps or living with a parent or someone else on a temporary basis who is either pregnant or has just given birth to their child. Well, this program brings them in, gives them a stipend for a few years to get them on their feet. It's a supplemental program, and we have seen over 163 women, almost 200 women now, move from shelter into permanent housing. And this is something that I actually campaigned on when I was running in the primaries. And if we can do anything, we need to make sure that we can prevent homelessness before it ever starts. So what a great way to do this with those populations who need us the most, which has been at the heart of my administration and my life's work and service. How do we help the least of these that need us so much in New York City, and so many do? This program actually is so successful in doing just that.
That's great. And you are also proud of the first 4 trauma recovery centers that are located in the Bronx and Brooklyn. This is another underrepresented population.
Absolutely, and I'm really proud that this is going to be a part of this legacy work as well. So this is the first time that New York State has ever seen a trauma recovery center. And as you said, we have 3 of them in Brooklyn, 1 in the Bronx. I'm hoping to bring 1 to my borough, the world's borough in Queens, as well. So when we take a look at violence, gun violence, domestic violence, we often use the folks that are the victims as just props when they're spoken about, and then we just leave them in a corner somewhere. Well, the TRCs bring them in for healing, be that therapy, meditation, people to talk to, counseling. So we now have spaces, safe spaces, for people that have perhaps been victims of gun violence, perhaps been victims of domestic violence and other acts of violence, not to perpetrate and continue those cycles of violence in those vulnerable communities that have been affected most. And when we talk to the folks that are getting help from the TRCs, they say, "You've saved my life." This would have never been possible, and lives are being changed for the positive, thankfully, because of the TRCs. And hopefully the new mayoral administration will build on some of the work that we've done in the council over these 4 years. And I'll go back to housing. 93% of housing proposals have been passed through this city council. So again, Cheryl, I don't know how we got to be the bad guys. It seems like some folks are in a time warp. This is the model that we have set forward to creating affordable housing in the city of New York through my leadership. So we're just hoping that this will continue with the new mayoral administration, build and baseline on great programs like CUNY Reconnect, which is another one of my babies.
Yeah, another one of your babies. Let me ask you, you said, I don't know how we got to be the bad guys. Do you feel people did not appreciate the work of the city council?
In some ways, unfortunately, and I think a big piece of that, and I think that the city saw this played out, unfortunately, and that's the relationship between the administration and the city council, which I've been very vocal about. We set off to do great things collaboratively, and unfortunately that broke down, and that makes me very sad. But with all of that said, this council has done tremendous work, and the work to look ahead in saving and restoring places that were cut by the mayor's budget in a few years of budgets that we've done, in restoring and creating great things in culturals for our students, for CUNY, for healthcare, for aging adults. The list goes on and on and on. For housing, which is at the top of the list, of course. Great work for the city, all done by this council.
Okay, we're going to take another break. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
Of the office of Speaker of the New York City Council.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Madam Speaker.
That was a historic moment in the City Council chambers. Thanks for staying with us as we continue our discussion with City Council Speaker Adrienne Adams. You made history.
My goodness.
3 years ago. You said it seemed like a lifetime.
Seems like a lifetime ago with all the work that we've been doing.
Well, you know, we do not yet know, Madam Speaker, who the next mayor will be, but here's what we do know. It won't be a woman.
That's right.
And
That's right.
you ran, and there are women. Most major American cities have had a woman mayor, but not America's biggest city. What did you learn along the campaign trail about voters' perceptions of women running for the top job in City Hall?
Ooh, lots. But you know, at the top of that list, Cheryl, is that voters were excited to see a woman running, and who a lot of the voters consider to be the most qualified, somebody that's actually doing the job, which I kept saying, just put me from one side of City Hall to the other side of City Hall and let's get this work done. A lot of voters recognize that, and I'm so grateful for that. The experience was exhilarating. It was one of a lifetime. I would not change anything. It was seeing, women and young girls saying, thank you for doing this. Thank you for getting in there. We need you to be in there. We need you to be that voice that we don't have anymore. And so at the end of the day, the voters spoke. I respect that. And we move on. We move on and we look towards women leadership still in New York City, in the city council, in the mayoral administration, across this nation. We have mayors right now, and we have governors coming up in different parts, which I'm going to be, hopefully meeting with and talking to over the upcoming months and dealing with the next great thing in my life, whatever that is. And I look forward to much more women leadership that is so, so needed after leading the first women majority city council in the history of the city.
Yes, you did. And what do you think it would take for a woman to be mayor of New York City?
My goodness.
Would you have done anything differently?
I probably would have gotten in earlier, which is the thing that I hear more often than not, is why did you wait so long? If only you had gotten in sooner. I believe that had I gotten in sooner, we would see me right now head to head in this contest that will be decided in 2 weeks. I firmly believe that. So it would have been getting in sooner, but there were reasons that I took my time and decided to finally get into this race.
Sure. And one of the things you did as the first African-American speaker that touched a lot of hearts in this city, you put a face on that maternal mortality crisis.
Yes.
Those numbers are horrific, not only in the city, but the state and the nation as a whole. And you really put it on the front burner.
Yeah, I had to.
Yeah.
There were too many stories. There were too many Black women and women of color dying, still are, as we speak, dying because of things that are totally preventable. Why are women dying in childbirth and in pregnancy.
In the 21st century.
In the 21st century, in the process of who most believe is the most natural thing ever for women to do. And that is to give life. It doesn't make any sense, but it does have reasons, unfortunately, that once we start to pull the curtain back or peel the onion back or whatever metaphor we may choose to use, we realize what those reasons are, and it boils down, unfortunately, to racism and the fact that women and women of color are still seen very, very strong. And you and I were born in Elmhurst
Yes,
Hospital,
we were.
very proud Queens
very
girls.
proud Queens girls.
Yeah, and I tell the story of my mom, who had quite a few false alarms before she gave birth to me. And that last false alarm, and going into that hospital many, many years ago, she was left by the nurses on a gurney by herself. And a few minutes later, she's yelling, "Nurse, the baby's here." Yeah. And she gave birth to me alone. In a room, in a hospital room. And my mom and I made it. Yeah. And she gave birth to me, but we could have been part of that instance of that maternal mortality that I speak about so often. It propelled me to impanel a steering committee in the city council, and we brought in health professionals from all over the place, women that have the minds, that work in hospitals, doulas, and other places, people that have lost their own daughters to death. Yeah. And we brought them together, and we have now put forth legislation now to prevent the unnecessary deaths of women in childbirth and pregnancy.
Lastly, what's next for Adrienne Adams? So many say we haven't heard the last from you. You're leaving office December 31st. That's right. And your term limited out. That's right. Will we see you hold public office again?
My goodness, that remains to be seen. And I keep saying, thankfully, I do have so many options. I didn't start this career in public life. I started in the private sector, many, many years in corporate America as an executive trainer, and got my chops in speaking and working and all that in the private sector. Moved on into this public life. And again, I never say never, but I'm looking on to doing more things, where my life can be used in service. It has been the most rewarding experience of a lifetime to be that servant for the people of the city of New York. I expect to do that and more.
It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank
you for your time, and thank you for all the interviews over the years. It's always been a pleasure. City Council Speaker Adrienne Adams.